Going from a college football and Cowboy legend to an NFL legend seems fitting to me. Jon Gruden to Oklahoma State is a pipe dream. It's outlandish, preposterous, crazy. Or maybe, just maybe, Jon Gruden can come be our Katie Couric.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Mazda. Make sure that you have the capability to move and be moved with Mazda, because like our players who sweat the details, so does Mazda. When you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward moment with Mazda, where you can move and be moved. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the odds-on favorite is G.J. Kinney. Number 2 in the Vegas odds to replace Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State is Jon Gruden. And yes, it does seem like something that's a pipe dream that Oklahoma State fans are just pushing out there to add some publicity or marketability to this coaching search. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. Not always, but typically, Vegas puts out their odds predicated upon information that they're getting. And typically, some of the people that give the Vegas insiders this level of information are pretty tied in to what is happening, what is transpiring. Does that mean they're tied into the Oklahoma State side of things? Maybe not. But it does mean perhaps they're tied into the Jon Gruden side of things. So if there's people in Jon Gruden's camp saying that, yeah, we've already expressed interest publicly that we do want to get back into the college coaching ranks, even though we haven't been at the college ranks since 1989, there is some validity to him being number 2 on the list. I've already heard from some donors that this is not a pipe dream. This is something that Oklahoma State is willing to realistically go after. Does it mean it's going to happen? Who knows? But the fact that Oklahoma State is willing to take this level of a swing, to me, shows precisely why we need to respect the fact that there might be actually some donors that are willing to step up. I know some people are saying that that's potentially crazy, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that A, we could get Jon Gruden, and B, that we have enough donors that are willing to make this kind of swing. There's always been this perception of Oklahoma State being a stepping stone style of school. I think Mike Gundy has added so much meat and potatoes to the relevancy of Oklahoma State that is not true. It's not even close to an applicable scenario here. But Jon Gruden to Oklahoma State, if you ask some of the donors, is realistic, or at least we're going to make a massive push to try to make it realistic. I think that Chad Weiberg, if he could potentially pull this off, deserves an additional 4 years on this contract. From a coaching college perspective, we don't know what Jon Gruden would bring, but we know precisely that it would bring a massive amount of cachet to Oklahoma State instantaneously. So if we're looking to rebuild the recruiting class pretty easily, you could envision that somebody like Jon Gruden would have enough reach and enough cachet nationally to help instantaneously with the recruiting. When it comes to the roster that we currently have and maintaining some of those dudes that can help be part of the Cowboy culture, why would you not want to do it with an NFL legend? Because if he can come to the college ranks and figure it out and establish himself as a viable candidate to bring in a top-notch staff, why would you not want to stick around for that? Why would you not want to be part of the team that brings Oklahoma State back to the precipice of competing for Big 12 titles? And if there's any reservations in regards to Jon Gruden's coaching acumen, let's not forget that he has more connections than virtually anybody else in all of the NFL. So Jon Gruden's been able to keep his ear to the grindstone and have a very good understanding of what the top coaches in the country are trying to do from a schematic standpoint, and who the top coaches in the country that are capable of coming into a situation like this at Oklahoma State with Jon Gruden at his side to make something magical happen. On top of that, if we were able to get another former Cowboy to come in and be a coordinator, that would also add a lot of legitimacy to what we're trying to accomplish. Do I think that there are some things externally off of the football field that are a little bit too on the nose or too reminiscent of some of the the things that Mike Gundy has done? Perhaps. But again, if you're trying to take a massive swing that will catch the attention of everybody in the country from both the college football and the NFL ranks, this would certainly accomplish that. When people see what is happening to Bill Belichick at North Carolina, of course, there is going to be at least a little reservation, which is understandable. And again, if you look at the external things, maybe there's some stuff that is comparable to some of the assumptions nationally made about Mike Gundy over the years. Sure. Is Bill Belichick struggling? Sure. But I think Bill Belichick has other things around him that are causing him a massive amount of distractions, for one. Secondarily, it takes a little bit of a while to get something established. We all know that. It might take time for Bill Belichick to get things rocking and rolling. But that's why it's also a big deal, in my opinion, that Jon Gruden carries the name that he does, because he has access to so many things. He has been instrumental in a lot of NFL teams' resurgence. And I mean, even recently, if you look at what the Oakland Raiders were doing before his unceremonious firing, they were building something. They were a competitive team that had a potential to make the playoffs. And if you couple this with another Cowboy as a coordinator, then all of those Des Bryant being on the sideline conversations get to creep back up again. So even if there is a little bit of a learning curve for Jon Gruden, I have no doubt that if he can come in and get this done, if the donors and Chad Weiber can legitimately pull this off, then Oklahoma State nationally gets a different level of media open to them now that we haven't had previously, right? If you go back to when Mike Gundy was on the Pat McAfee show, what that did for visibility was huge. What that did for adding a little bit of additional cachet in the recruiting landscape, absolutely massive. Jon Gruden has more than enough connections for him to put Oklahoma State at the forefront of every conversation in the country. If you look at all of the statistics from the Mike Gundy firing, whether it be the Pat McAfee show or multiple shows on YouTube, CBS, On 3 Sports, 247, those numbers are absolute insanity. Imagine what those numbers would be from a visibility standpoint nationally if Jon Gruden were to be the guy. So as much as everybody's pushing around that this is ridiculous, this is insanity, and there's no reason for the Vegas odds to be that high, we have to take into consideration, A, they typically have some sources that are giving them enough information to be somewhat accurate. If you couple that with the fact that we're hearing, supposedly, that the donors are willing to take a huge swing. They want to either get a top 25 power 4 dude or an NFL guy that does carry a massive name, that has recruiting capabilities, that has the enhancements easily available to them when it comes to staff, when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to the visibility that we've never had before. What has been my biggest complaint for all of the regulars and regulators out there, get in the comments and beat me to it? One of my biggest complaints always, since the very beginning of me being at this job, is our lack of national media coverage. And the fact that the media landscape at Oklahoma State was so small that, to me, it was going to be hard for us to reach the level of visibility that everybody hopes that we could eventually get to and achieve. For Oklahoma State to get the national respect and visibility that we're talking about, you're going to need multiple Big 12 title runs. You're going to need a few Big 12 titles, and you're going to need a few CFP appearances. Jon Gruden instantaneously accomplishes all that. But again, this is not just for visibility, profitability, marketability. This is legitimately because he is showing interest in getting back into the coaching ranks in college. If anybody's going to be able to get buku dollar bills and NIL, it would be Jon Gruden. If anybody can get the maximum reach on behalf of Oklahoma State to get the brand out there more, it is Jon Gruden. So I appreciate and respect the fact that the AD, the donors, president, and everybody at Oklahoma State is willing to make this kind of swing, because the Vegas odds will not be this high if they're not hearing the same things that we're starting to hear at Oklahoma State. The donors are willing to try to make this happen. Chad Weiberg, if you couple this with a former Cowboy as a coordinator, then it does, in fact, accomplish everything that we could have physically possibly even dreamed of the minute that Mike Gundy was let go as the head man in Stillwater America. DoorDash is going to help you keep the streak alive, so make sure that you have an order scheduled for this Saturday. This weekend is almost upon us. We're going to take a look back and crown this week's MVP, the individuals who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every single Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players deliver when it matters most. So let's break it down. For Lockdown Oklahoma State country, we did recently talk about Brian McCoy, but we also needed some help down low in the blocking category. And I do feel like that Josh Ford, the Stillwater Oklahoma native tight end, was able to finally get in on the pass catching department, but his solidification of the outside was the only reason that we had a lot of success in just having the ability to allow some of the players to matriculate down the field, put us in a position to be successful. So thank you very much for Josh Ford, the Stillwater Oklahoma native, for coming through without hesitation. And if you've been watching week after week, Josh Ford has constantly performed. Sometimes it's not always in the catching department, but his blocking ability, his tenacity, his willingness to get to the second level and mix it up is something that we can hang our hat on with pride this season. And just like Josh Ford, delivering for Oklahoma State fans, DoorDash is going to deliver your Saturdays for you with the DoorDash Streaks. You're going to be able to save every Saturday on your order to stack it up throughout the course of the year, where you can get up to saving $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promotional code goes through November 18th. So get with DoorDash to have your streak delivered on Saturday right now. FanDuel wants to help you capitalize on the NFL season. This is precisely why they're giving you something that you cannot miss out on for NFL kickoffs. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet's a winner, you get $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. It makes every game more exciting. No matter what you're watching for, no matter what you're investing in, the investment level is what matters. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If it's a winner, you get $300 back in bonus bets by going to FanDuel. All right, now we get to slide into the next segment here, which is going to be the quarterback situation. Doug Meacham was able to meet with the media and address them yesterday. He did address a few things that we'll kind of talk about throughout the course of the next few days. But one of the biggest things that I think we should all be paying attention to is when he talks about Zane Flores and it's only being, 2 games into his collegiate career, having a better understanding, getting used to what he needs to be looking at from audibles and shifts defensively. But on top of that, there was a clamoring against Tulsa for Noah Walters, the North Alabama transfer that in a couple seasons was able to put up almost 4,500 yards. And, he does have that experience. He has some versatility. He has some wheels. I called him kind of the new age version of Drew Brown, and I still think that is extremely fitting for his style of play. With that being said, if Oklahoma State does find itself in a precarious situation once again, where we have difficulties driving down the field, where we have difficulty sustaining drives, is it time that we see somebody else? Not saying that Zane Flores needs to be shelved by any stretch of the imagination, but if we're having, a hard time getting the ball down the football field to put us in a position to at least score some semblance of points, eventually you got to do something. If Banks Bowen may not quite be ready, of course, that may be precisely why we brought Noah Walters in, essentially off the street, previously being a UCF student after 2 years at North Alabama. But when is it going to be time, right? Doug Meacham did make some comments about his connections to TCU and kind of playing some things close to that, which we'll get a little bit more to in the next segment. But if Banks Bowen is not ready and Mason Schubert isn't eligible at the moment to be a solid source on the field, when do we see Noah Walters? And we just talked with Cam Stewart about the potential of seeing Sam Jackson V in the backfield to at least add another layer of eye candy or a sprinkle that makes the Baylor defense respect what they're seeing in the backfield a little bit more. The same can be said about Noah Walters, because there's not a ton of substance to look at film-wise for Zane Flores, but there's definitely not any out there for Noah Walters. So you can look at statistics. You can look at his yards rushing, which obviously indicates that he has the capability to get out and scramble, to extend the pocket, which was precisely what Haas Haney was able to bring to this offense. So we know that that's what Noah Walters likes to do, because you can go back and look at the North Alabama film. He does like to escape the pocket. He does like to roll. He can roll to both sides. He likes to take shots down the field. He likes to take chances. He likes to see openings that give him enough availability to take off and get a first down. If we know that that was the strong suit of Haas Haney that covered up some of the limitations on the offensive line, with the information that we're down a handful of offensive linemen still, and our starting left tackle, the guy who protects the blind side for every quarterback, is likely out for a considerable amount of time, maybe we need to see Noah Walters. If Zane Flores is struggling, is this a halftime level change for Oklahoma State? Because I was excited about Banks Bowen. Again, Banks Bowen in high school rushed for almost 2,300 yards. So that is his strong suit as well. So I was a little perplexed when I found out that we were bringing Noah Walters in, or the fact that he'd been on campus for a couple of weeks, getting used to the system and the Cowboy culture and the play calls, all that fun jazz. So if he's had a little bit of time to understand the system, he's had a little bit of time to be a part of practices, he's definitely going to be involved in some of the scout team elements, especially when you're playing a mobile quarterback. If he's had that level of time, and we know that the escapability out of the pocket was precisely what made Haas Haney so dangerous, other than his arm talent and his wheels, if that's Noah Walters' wheelhouse, how long does Doug Meacham and this offense wait to at least sprinkle him into the game plan? Like, we got to see the Wildcat with Trent Howland, and we haven't seen it since. We didn't get to see the Wildcat or any iteration of that with Sam Jackson in the backfield against Tulsa, which makes absolutely zero sense. Give Zane Flores some help. It doesn't always necessarily mean he has to be pulled out of the game, but perhaps put Noah Walters in for a series or two, a few plays or three. If you're not going to put Sam Jackson V back there, heck, absolutely give us Zane Flores in the backfield with Sam Jackson V with Noah Walters. At the very least, the Baylor defense is going to have absolutely no clue what to do or what to look at and what they need to be trying to identify with those three dudes in the backfield. If there is going to be some simplicity to this game plan, and the simplicity of the game plan is going to stay intact, then we need to mix it up to some degree. Put something in the backfield. Give us a diamond formation with an additional quarterback, or with a wide receiver that played quarterback at this level for years. We have to mix it up to some degree. We have to help Zane Flores get a little bit more comfortable. And maybe having a little added wrinkle offensively is precisely what Zane Flores needs to help himself. Traditionally speaking, when you pull a player off the field before he's been able to get into a rhythm, it doesn't spell success. But you've got to do something. You cannot try to squeeze a square peg in a round hole, which is precisely what we've done the last 3 weeks. Just like we've said, Meacham needs to show that there's a differentiation. If it can't necessarily always be in the plays, then it needs to be in the personnel or the packaging of the plays to mix it up enough, to make Baylor confused enough for us to be somewhat productive here in this ballgame. Speaking of production, getting out and just freeing yourself from the obligations that surround you sometimes is a necessity. And Mazda is going to allow you to do just that. This episode today is brought to you by Mazda's Moving Forward Moment. For those who believe that it's not just about simply getting in to play the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do put us in positions to put massive amounts of points on the board. That's the feeling that you can get as well with Mazda. Mazda can help you move crowds, move culture, and keep your game moving forward consistently. The moment that is defining Oklahoma State right now is the Mike Gundy scenario. The moment that could define Doug Meacham and the future of Oklahoma State in this season should happen against the Baylor Bears, whether it be this most recent interview that he was able to give us or the post-game presser that we're inevitably going to get after Baylor. These are the things that keep us moving forward. There is definitely some feelings that the Cowboy locker room is going to respond. They're going to play with a little added emotion in this ball game, which could make the move forward for Doug Meacham easy. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every game, there's also more to every single Mazda vehicle. So make sure you go check out MazdaIt so you can have your opportunity to move and be moved with Mazda. All right, so we've been dropping some little hints here and there. Doug Meacham mentioned that there's not going to be a dramatic difference from the offense that we've been seeing to this game with Baylor. Obviously, that statement, if true, it is very, very concerning and problematic because the offense we have seen has been an atrocious, absolute disaster, trying to find some level of production and some level of hope and some level of positivity. So it is slightly concerning for me to hear him say that we're not going to change stuff up. Now, one of the reasons he gave does make some sense. He's very close with the TCU staff. He's worked under, for, and with multiple dudes on this TCU staff, both defensively and offensively. So for him to change it up and go back to some of the things that he's utilized traditionally in his career, calling some plays, would potentially put Oklahoma State at a disservice. And that is fair. If he's afraid that he could implement some of the things that he's done, not only at TCU, but XFL, UFL, whatever the case may be, and it's going to tip the hand, then it makes sense to play it close to the vest. But again, hopefully we're able to spice things up enough in the backfield, give some eye candy, give some different packages to at least entice Baylor to make some mistakes. Because we all know that if we do exactly what we've been doing, we're going to get destroyed in this ball game, no matter how inspired the players are to play for Gundy or with Meacham. So that is a concern, him saying that, yeah, we're not going to change everything because A, it's too soon, B, they know me too well. So we've got to mix it up in some area. Another area that he mentioned that we're going to keep it pretty much the same is he's going to be on the field. And he did add an additional layer to the reasoning why. And it's because the access to the iPads on the field does kind of give you that bird's eye view already. So it doesn't create the same level of necessity to have coaches up getting that bird's eye view, the 3,000-foot view, to understand what offenses and defenses both are trying to accomplish. The simplicity factor of Doug Meacham staying on the sidelines is definitely encouraging. The fact that he's going to both be running the sidelines, the team, and calling the plays might be a little bit concerning. But again, if there is going to be a degree of separation from the offense that Doug Meacham wants to run and the offense that we have seen being run the last few games, if it's going to change a little bit, I respect him saying, I want the coaches on the field so we can have face-to-face interactions with the players. That aspect of keeping things the same does make some sense. And I do appreciate the fact that he expounded upon it a little bit to add the layer of, well, with the iPads readily available, we already kind of get that view that you're trying to have in the booth. And so instead of just simply saying, no, I'm going to be on the sidelines, the fact that he opened that door a little bit to tell us why, greatly appreciative. And we have to admit, it's a pretty decent difference from most of what we get out of Mike Gundy. So in his first press conference as the head coach, or at least meeting up with the media scramble per se, I think he handled it very, very well. And he did shed light onto some things that we need to be paying attention to. Do I love keeping it the same playbook-wise and play call-wise? No. And I surely hope that that's a little bit of gamesmanship and coach speak because, yeah, if we do exactly what we've been doing, it's going to be a rough go. But the other side of that is him keeping it the same by staying on the sidelines. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the reasonings that he gave for that. he's going to be the head coach of the team and the offense, while Todd Grantham is the head coach of the defense, because Doug mentioned he had a job to do. His job was to focus on the offensive side of the ball. So there's a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball that he is not familiar with. So Todd Grantham is going to be the head coach of the defense. That might give us the biggest cause for concern, more so than being on the sidelines versus being in the booth, more so than keeping the play calls the exact same for the most part. I firmly believed in Todd Grantham. I firmly believed in this staff. The fact that it's been such a massive letdown, that might be one of the biggest causes for concern entering this game against the Baylor Bears. But anywho, let me know down in the comments section what you think about this Jon Gruden thing. Did you think that it was completely ridiculous when you saw the odds? Do you still think it's ridiculous, even though there have been some things circulating that the donors want this? They want to push for this. They're willing to back this, both financially and physically. Is that surprising to you? Are you appreciative of that? Do you think at the end of the day, it's all going to fizzle out and not become a thing? Let me know down in the comment section. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listening here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm podcasting people out there. You're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, the funny stuff, the funky stuff. You're all of it. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All righty, y'all. Later, my taters.